In a disturbing incident from St. Catherine, Jamaica, a 39-year-old Kenyan Roman Catholic priest faces serious charges of sexual offenses involving a 12-year-old girl. The accusations include abduction and rape within the church premises. The charges encompass sexual intercourse with a minor, sexual touching, grievous sexual assault, and child abduction. These incidents allegedly occurred in March but were reported in June 2023. The priest is accused of befriending the girl, a school student, and luring her to his church home for the assault. The charges were filed based on the girl's identification of the priest in an official lineup and questioning by his attorney. The case underscores the importance of skepticism, even towards figures of trust. Authorities emphasize their commitment to justice for the victim and urge anyone with relevant information to step forward. This article was carried on July the 11th on the Jamaican Observer, ABC News, and AP News, and on July the 23rd on Loop News. Yes, Cynthia, over to you. What do you have for us in relation to this article?
This is such a tragedy. When I first read it, I was really just trying to find out more information because the ABC and the AP news articles are pretty short. The Jamaica Observer gave us a little bit more details, but I did have to do a little bit more digging in order for me to find out more concerning this whole tragic event. But before I really go into that, I'm very curious to hear what the panel has to say. So, Jonathan, would you please give us your thoughts?
Yeah, this one is unfortunately all too common. We've covered on this show many times when a Catholic priest or other minister or church official has committed these sorts of crimes. A lot of times they get away with it because either the parents or the guardians of the kid don't know about it, or when they do find out about it, are reluctant to press charges against a man of the cloth. And I did find that the Jamaica Gleaner first carried this story on July 10th. So and then it was picked up by the Jamaica Observer on the 11th and the API on the 11th, and that's Associated Press International. But there was no author, so it's kind of hard to do any further digging on it. But she's 12 years old. Come on, people. You know, this guy should pretty much go away for life. I could think of some other suitable punishments, but they're mostly illegal according to the Geneva Conventions. So the Kingston Diocese saying they're cooperating with police, eh, are they really? The Archbishop immediately removed the priest from all active pastoral ministry in the diocese, but only in the diocese, probably because he was in jail. The only reason why they expressed concern for those affected, of course, is because they got caught. That priest got caught, and so the church has had a bad record of not just moving priests around when they get caught, but also not doing anything about it to the priest, other than say 4 Hail Marys and in an Our Father or something. It's like they always believe that you can pray it away, and that's a disgusting part. This little girl is going to be scarred for life. She's going to have trauma that she's going to need a lot of help with dealing with. And is the church going to pay for their therapy or assistance, or are they just going to say, I'll pray with you? And that's what I want to know, really. Of course, we don't know yet what's going to happen with her, and probably never will, because it won't make the news. But anyway, as I was saying, this is just something that is all too common. What do you have to say on this?
Well, John, this girl needed help, but the Catholic Church added a predator. this would be laughable if there wasn't a very real nightmare that this child is living. But as you alluded to, this tragedy is going to soon be replaced by another church atrocity in the news cycle. But not for her. Her need for help was more harm, and now this family most likely will risk being ostracized and maybe even in danger for just speaking out, because there are going to be people that are going to come to this priest's defense. Now, I am curious to whether this priest was was he under previous suspicions before he was moved? Were there other investigations? Are they investigating now where he was? And of course, that any investigation they do is ultimately going to serve their own self-interest. Their blind followers frivolously accuse their enemies of being groomers. They should spend some time looking in the mirrors and see what they are. Their own Catholic bishop report estimated over 4% of priests in the Catholic Church are, quote, plausibly accused of abuse. That's over 100 times higher than the general population conviction rate. Now, religion orders obedience, and that breeds secrets. But the problem does extend far beyond just the Catholics. I have in-laws sitting under a pastor right now facing charges for sexual assault of 2 underage victims. Now, understand, though, if you're Catholic, you're supporting a crime syndicate. They spend over $300 million a year protecting child raping priests. You weren't there when it happened, but your money made it possible. Just stop. Now, Phil, what's your take on this?
This is problematic and sick in so many ways. You have, first of all, consent issue, 12-year-old, right? Where a 12-year-old can't give consent. And you have the power dynamic disparity, a 39-year-old versus 12-year-old. As you said correctly, infidel, trauma, that's trauma for life for that little girl. Trust betrayed, right? The priest is supposed to be this so-called holy person. Very persons will expect that they will be quote-unquote righteous. And of course, the priest abused his power, right? He's supposed to be this so-called pillar of society. Another thing, mental immaturity of the development of the 12-year-old. At that age, the prefrontal cortex is not even probably just start to develop. That's the critical thinking part of the brain, right? And children tend to use more their amygdala, the emotional part of the brain. So you can imagine the emotional trauma this child undergone when this sick priest do this to the child. And one other thing, biologically, child's womb is not developed and cause damage. We know from science and medical science that when children are that young and have sex with an adult, it can cause serious damage to that child's womb where they cannot reproduce when they get older. So, this is really problematic. And the thing is that also what had me a bit confused was, why did it take so long? Why did it take 3 months to be reported? And as it was Jonathan who said that because it is a priest, maybe that's why the parents, if they found out early, will say, okay, this is a man of God, and probably tell the child, are you sure? Are you, did this really happen? Please don't tell lies on the priest. It is really sad that such a thing like this happened to a 12-year-old, and that a priest who's supposed to be trusted did this. And as you all said correctly, this has been an ongoing problem in the Catholic Church. and
Oh,
in
yeah.
other churches too. I think in Christianity, and I suspect it's because of this celibate, the celibate rule that they have. It is creating problems. What do you say about that, Cynthia?
Gosh, this is a story that's right up our fellow nonprofit Teo El Alteo's alley. We would have had a whole icon of a de facto pope with crazy eyes and like and the pointy teeth and the whole 9 yards, and it's appropriate. And Phil, when you said that, why did it take 3 months? To be and honest with you, that's like lightning speed, considering
Oh,
the
God.
Catholic Church being put on blast. Well, this priest specifically being arrested and I know he's not convicted yet. He just got charged back in June, but that's pretty quick. I mean, like, how many stories have we covered on the nonprofits talking about sexual abuse of children at the
Mhm.
hands of priests, where some of the children were adults by the time that they got any semblance of justice? you know and I feel for this little girl who and she is, even though like some people say, oh well, she's 12, she's a preteen, she is a child. She
Yes.
is
She's
a
a child.
child, and children do not have the wherewithal to consent to any type of sexual acts with an adult,
Mhm.
let alone each other. I mean, they don't. As Phil aptly pointed out, your skeptical, critical thinking portion of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, now I'm not a scientist, but I can say that word, yay, is not developed yet. I believe that I've read that that particular portion of your brain does not develop all the way until you're like 25, 25 plus. And this is the reason why we had crazy college students making very stupid things and stupid acts on video. And I could even recall a few bad decisions that I made on my own when I was 20 years old, because I did not have a fully developed skeptical core in my brain. Thank you, Jonathan. You feel me? So this was a fully a um story that talks about a child being taken advantage of by an adult. And I'm pretty sure that he used his position of power in order for him to do it, even though that in the stories it really does not mention that. I One of the articles I found actually on Iriman Yaman FM, which is a radio station in Jamaica, gave a little bit more exposition on the story. It said that the police now have charged a Kenyan Roman Catholic priest who was arrested in relation to an alleged case of sexual abuse. The charges include sexual intercourse with a person under 16 years, and sexual touching of a child, grievous sexual assault, and abduction of a child under 16 years, as Phil talked about at the beginning of the segment. It also alleges offenses were committed on Sunday afternoon on March the 19th, but of course we didn't get it reported until June 23rd. It also says that reports are that the priest befriended the child and lured her to his home where he allegedly assaulted her. And the charges were filed after the man was positively identified by the complainant during an identification parade and question and answer interview with the story. This is what we know. But I also found out from nationwide radiojm.com that this particular priest is named Lawrence Muvengi, and he is the one who is was also granted bail when he appeared in front of the St. Catherine Parish Court, and he was granted a sum, get this, guys, of $800,000. And I'm like, where did you get that Skrilla from, sir? be able to put up bail after you sexually assaulted a child. And he has been charged with rape and sexual grooming and having intercourse with a person under 16. And he is going to appear in court on September 27th of this year. So I think that this is a story that is definitely worth following. But I just have a question for you all, just to, if you want to go ahead and answer it for me. Do you all think because the $800,000 was granted for him to get on bail, so he's not in jail now, do you think that this is probably a part of that whole diocese in a fund that has been set aside for priests that have been accused of sexually assaulting children? Infidel, what do you think?
Well, I had read about that outrageous ability to get out on bail. I'm not. I've got mixed feelings about the bail process because I think it enables the rich. But moving past that right now, this guy shouldn't even be getting out of jail. And we all know that if it wasn't directly from the Catholic Church, it's one of those angles. One of those semi-Catholic related charities, not charities, but organizations that are supporting this. This is, as I said, this is a criminal syndicate. We can call it a church, and that's probably true at most churches. But at the bottom line is that this guy committed a crime that, or most likely committed a crime that all indications, as I said earlier, he should never get out. And the mere fact that anyone is interested in seeing him out, I would be more of, even if I thought I wanted to give him the complete benefit of the doubt, well, let's let you sit and think about where you are right now, and then we'll see what the evidence bears out. But no, like we continue to see, let's make sure we minimize the responsibility for your actions. Whether you're guilty or not doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and take care of our own. And that's what I think we're seeing right now. Now, John, what's your take?
I would agree with what you're saying. If anything is true, I've been to Jamaica, but that was almost 40 years ago now. So I don't know what Jamaica's like now, but it was a fairly poor country when I was there. And maybe Phil can fill us in on that a little more. But I would say that there's no common person there, and no priest that I know who can come up with almost $1 million for bail. So I'm thinking that it had to be the church, even though it doesn't. I didn't see anything that said where, but it's just really, really a tragic event. But he should stay in jail, and I think I don't remember which one it was, but I think he was given house arrest. But we know what that is. He lives in a church house, so of course the bishops removed him from all pastoral work, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's put up any blocks to his access to other children.
He needed the house last time.
Yeah, so I'm kind of wondering who else he's been grooming. Like you mentioned, Infidel, that did he come from that problem before? Because it's just like the church to move him to another country. So now we have a whole slew of problems that just don't add up. As far as anything in the way of being of law-abiding or legal precedent. It just doesn't make sense to me. Phil, what do you got to say? I know you're in Barbados, but I thought since you're in the Caribbean area, you might have a little bit more to say on it.
Yeah, Jamaica is still in terms of, because of the large difference. When you look at the dollar, I can't remember how much it is. $1 to, I can't remember if it's 140 Jamaican. So one of my questions was, is it 800,000 US? Or is it 800,000 Jamaican? And then the other thing, as you raise, Jonathan, the point, that's one of the questions I had too. Have he done this before?
Yeah.
Because this is something that just don't happen just so by chance.
No.
And on top of that, why it that came to my mind is 2 weeks later he fondled the girl's rear end after the first assault. So this is suggesting to me this is not something that just started. This is something ongoing. And then the other question that came to my mind is Kenyan Roman Catholic priests. Well, they're moving from Kenya to Jamaica.
Why?
Highly suspect. Why? So it raises a number of questions, and it is clear. We know from the past how the Catholic Church tends to move around problematic priests, especially when it comes to this sexual abuse. They do it, and then the person goes on to do it again, and so on. They do not make them accountable. They do not remove them. They do not even bring charges against them. And just to say that it's a priest, so he is that excuse? No, he's a human being like any one of us, and if one of us did it, our behinds will still be in jail. Can't
That's
make
it.
excuses, right? You can't make excuses
No.
at all, and
No, you should not.
the they should not. And the thing is that this seems like a slap on the wrist for that priest. 800,000, maybe it's Jamaican dollars, 800,000 Jamaican dollars, right? Is a slap on the wrist,
Yeah.
and very likely the church did pay for it. And I know there was a assault case here in Barbados where with a pastor, right, and he assaulted the same age basically as this young lady, a young girl too, around the same age, 11 or 12 years old. And the persons in the congregation used to hold this guy up, put a red carpet out for him, and when he's getting out the car. And so I think, what if I remember correctly, they ostracized the girl, the young girl. Oh, the pastor can't do this. The pastor, you sure? No, this child is lying on it. And I suspect any church members who love this
Yeah.
priest very likely will do the same thing for the child, and maybe that's why another reason why it took so long for them to report the incident.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
I
So Cynthia, yeah,
Where is the empathy for the victim? I just want to know. I know that like a lot of times I hear some people say very problematic things when a person is accusing another person of sexual assault. And when Me Too first came out, and you would hear the words, believe me. And then some people will be like, oh, they're lying, or why would we believe you? Or did you see what you were wearing, or what have you? It still shows that we have a long way to go in society before we are actually empathizing with the victims of these terrible events. And I just want to say one more thing before we wrap up. This very point was also brought up on recent episodes, but I gotta say it. I am so tired of reading story after story of people accusing members of the LGBTQIA plus community of grooming children, when we have story after story after story after story of priests and other ministers and other people that are leaders in the religious community actually grooming children. We got it backwards, and we need to do better. And I hope that possibly talking about this more, we can make a difference. But if you, dear viewer, want to hear us talk more about things, click here.